if you've played both games all the way through, the connection between the original Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade 2 is relatively easy to notice. However, there's nothing that explicitly ties either of those games to Xenoblade Chronicles X, only a few references. That hasn't stopped people from theorizing about that, so today I'm going to debunk two theories about a connection between 2 and X that are both objectively provable to be incorrect, while also providing a third theory that I don't really see as having anything that explicitly disproves it. Of course, this will require spoilers for both of those two games, although I will not be spoiling anything about the original Xenoblade Chronicles in this, so if you haven't played that, you can watch this fine. The first theory I'll debunk is one stating that the land of Moritha is New Los Angeles and not a city on Earth, which would make 2 a distant sequel to X. This can be disproven in several ways. First off, in Klaus's speeches, he never implies anything about humanity having gone to a second planet or something. Everything he talks about heavily implies that whatever world the game is taking place on, that was the original home planet of humanity. And just in general, based on the technology level you see, yeah, they have powerful conduit-powered mechs and a huge particle accelerator in space and giant geostationary orbit stations, but there's nothing to show that they're capable of interstellar travel. Add that to the fact that, well, Klaus is a biological human, he isn't a mimeosome, so unless there's an X2 that fits in there somewhere that explains how humans got their natural bodies back, Klaus can't really be a resident of NLA. Additionally, Moritha's aesthetic is similar, but very obviously different from NLA. It's a little more grounded in realistic architecture that you would see in a regular city around here. And there are things that look very close to United States interstate highway signs, so this heavily implies that the Beanstalk was built out of some sort of space center in some United States city, and Klaus was presumably a British scientist working at it, judging by his accent. So, no, that's not the connection. 2 isn't a sequel to X. The second theory makes a little bit more sense, and is one that I sort of was leaning towards a little bit before I looked deeper into the game myself. And that is that the battle taking place outside the first low orbit station when Klaus performed the experiment is the same battle from the intro of X, where Earth is destroyed, and while the Ark ships were going up and stuff, Klaus was trying to save humanity in his own way by using the power of the conduit to, I guess, give himself god powers and defeat whoever was attacking. However, once again, supplementary material that came with X can disprove it. In the cutscene in 2, it's specifically stated that the enemies attacking the station are called the Saviorite Rebels. This isn't a name that shows up anywhere in X, and implies that whoever's attacking is in some way a human faction, which is completely different to X's story, in which Earth is destroyed basically as collateral in one skirmish in a larger battle between the Ganglion and another sort of alien race called the Ghosts. And it wasn't even actually weapons that destroyed it or directly attacking planet Earth, it was more ghost ships run on antimatter, so when they got shot down over the planet, they crashed into it and started causing antimatter explosions. The only reason the Ganglion specifically actually attacked humanity was because they were trying to flee, and they somehow got tipped off about the Sumerian connection. Also, you can't really see a giant particle accelerator around the planet in X's cutscene, and the mechs that seem to be used to defend the low orbit station are all sirens and not any of the sort of skell types we see in X. The mecha design is completely different between the two games, and since we know that all skell technology on Earth came from Elma, it doesn't seem likely that she would have provided 2 completely different looking base designs. So with those 2 theories debunked, we now turn to one that's actually plausible. And to do that, we have to go back to the Sumerian connection that I mentioned before. In the final battle, Luxar states that the Sumerians, the ancestors of humanity in X's universe, somehow showed up in that universe at the beginning of time there and created the original Ganglion. This is actually somewhat consistent with something Klaus states, that when he created the explosion with the conduit by mistake, people from the station, and I guess the land below as well, all got flung away into different dimensions. Yes, half of his body specifically got sent into something that connects to the first game, but other people were sent to other dimensions. That means, theoretically, some of the people from the station got sent to the beginning of time in the Xenoblade Chronicles X universe and created the original Ganglion there as servants or something, as something to help them fight, help them survive, possibly using some precursor to blade technology even, and then found a new Earth, settled it in somehow such a way that the fossil record and stuff showed up the exact same way it does in reality, and then went on to have their planet destroyed in the Ganglion Ghost War and flee to Mira. This seems the most likely of any theories I could think of connecting those two games, and it would mean that all three games in the series as of now are connected. Plus, this just sort of makes sense to me. You can't really tell any more stories with Allrest and the Aegises and stuff just because of the way Xenoblades 1 and 2 worked out. But who knows how many different dimensions people were flung into? We could have a bunch of Final Fantasy sequel-style Xenoblade games in the future that just work around that premise, that each game takes place in a different universe someone was flung into by Klaus. I don't know, I think that's a pretty decent way to keep the series going without tangentially tying things into each other or just making constant sequels to 1 and 2. Although, I do have to say, we kinda need that X2 sometime. And until next time, this is Luxon, signing off.